Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment of the weekend show. Today's discussion, we're talking about the savings and investment culture in Nigeria. Savings is a well-known term in every society as this is the first step to financial security. We have always had some form of saving activity in Nigeria like Isusu, Ajo and cooperative societies. However, a lot of Nigerians lack any real savings or investment and can hardly come up with adequate sums in times of emergency without borrowing or selling personal items. Joining us to discuss this topic today, we have
with us a senior economist, SPM professionals, Mr. Paul Alaje. Welcome to the weekend show.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. We also have with us Godwin Kingsley Obinna. He's the executive director of SEAL Resource Firm. Welcome, Godwin.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Finally, we have with us Brian Okwuogu, a chartered accountant and CEO of Questinel. Welcome to the weekend show.
Thank you very much, my brother.
I'll start with you, Mr. Brian. How do we develop a better savings culture in Nigeria? We always hear the excuse, I'm not even making too much to start saving. You know, some people are making maybe 20,000 naira, the best minimum wage. So how do we develop a culture amongst Nigerians in terms of savings and investment?
Okay, thank you very much. The first challenge that we have in Nigeria per savings is lack of financial literacy. There's a lot of lack of knowledge about what exactly savings should be. We see a lot of Nigerians going into investment, into activities that there's no guarantees. There are issues with those investments ab initio, and you still see people making those investments. The reasons for this is lack of training, lack of understanding of practically what is necessary for you to be able to make returns in the future. Now, if you put in X amount of money and in a few years' time, you're expecting some kind of returns, you have to consider from the beginning, are the returns I'm projecting possible? Are they reasonable? Without all this understanding, then there will be challenges going forward. You'll see people taking very high-risk investments without understanding the basis for those investments. Now, if I'm going to make, there's a number of cases, and I don't want to advertise for anybody, but there are a number of cases where you see Nigerians bringing in their finances, hard-earned resources, and putting into particular activity. Those activities, there's no basis for them because the money would drive money. If you have invested in something, then I have to understand what is the underlying that is driving the returns that will be generated. If there are no returns being generated from that kind of activity, then ultimately that is going to have an issue. People that constantly make those mistakes, because of those mistakes, they now get apprehensive. And because of that apprehension, they still make further mistakes, and it becomes something that is a challenge to the whole society. So at the beginning, at the basis of investment and savings is training. There has to be financial literacy amongst individuals and citizens in Nigeria.
Okay. But even with financial literacy, you still have several other factors. So take, for instance, a civil servant. And Paul, this question is to you. I'm a civil servant and I'm meant to get paid every month. And so I say 25% of my wages will go to savings. You now have situations where people don't get paid on the due dates. And so let's say I set a direct debit, or I open a savings account with one of them piggy vest types and say deduct from my account on the 25th of every month, and then I don't get paid. So even with my financial literacy, this still becomes a problem. And so Paul, how do we actually plan in advance to save in the first place when we have other situations and circumstances which already prevent us from being able to get the resources which we want to save?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me once again. If that is the first time, that would be very unfortunate for the investor whose first SO to bank, that standing order, is not paid as at when due. But it's assumed in a more realistic experience that the standing order has been given by the banks or by the financial institution to be debited certain percentage before the time is not getting paid. We know from experience that we have in Nigeria that, yeah, there are some level of payment might not be regular. Now, what I would say first is that there is difference between savings and investment. And there is difference between not spending and savings. So if I meet you at the gas station and I say, hey, hi friend, you want to buy gas? You want to fill your tank? How much? 10,000. And I say, don't worry, I was on a show with you on AIT, so you don't have to pay. And you go to the next store and you buy something with the 10,000. You have not saved anything. You have only changed your spendings from one point to another. So when you say savings, savings is you're actually taking that money out and you are saving it off, because if you had not met, you would have spent it on something. You are spending it to buy the gas. So that means you have saved. But spending it on something else means you have not saved. Now, haven't saved the money. And why is it even difficult for people to save? In my book, I wrote 4 reasons why people can encourage themselves to save. And what are the 4 reasons? Number 1, this is what I've applied to myself when I came to this city. The first thing is, what is it that I don't buy, I will die? She mentioned earlier that the money that you were given, 100% is not even enough. So how will the civil servant even save 25%? How will they save 25%? So this is a question I have, and I've had a lot of people I've been privileged to mentor that ask these 4 questions. First is, what is it that if you don't buy, you will die? Buy that first. The next is, what is it that if I don't buy, I will fall sick? Buy that next. What is it that I don't buy, my performance in the marketplace will reduce? And what is it that I don't buy, my market share will reduce? Now, if you check this form, none of them says, what if I don't buy? My neighbor will laugh at me. What if I don't buy? So what kills people largely is lifestyle. They want people to believe they've gotten to the level, and that is why we listen to some music that says that Dangote doesn't have 2 heads. They will not say the sacrifice he gave to get to where he is, but the song, so mere hearing that, the next thing is how do I become as rich as this person, not knowing that it's in phases. So what they should do is, the previous savings you have, ensure you put it in an investment. An investment can be active or passive. So if it's a civil servant expected to still do your work, option open to you is either to partner with someone to invest for you or to put your money in treasury bills and bonds. And if you're talking about investment and you don't understand what treasury bill and bond means,
no, but for some people, it's the little 10,000. This money, which I don't
it's
want
enough
to
to buy secondary bills. Secondary. You don't have to go to the central bank or go to bank and buy primary. You can actually go to fund managers and put your 10,000. It's a culture. Culture is what matters. Culture. You don't remind yourself when you are eating pizza that you should not put it on your nose. You don't remind yourself you should not go to your ear. It's in your mouth. So the same thing with investment. When you start with 10,000 naira, you know the difference between the rich and the poor. The rich and the poor, the difference is that when the rich earn money, he invest first and spend the rest. The poor spend first and wants to invest the rest. Most of the time, 0 is left. So he invests 0. So it became poor and poor. Even when you give the poor, and you can see the black stars in America and in some places, maybe in Nigeria also, because Nigerians are black. So when you say a rich person, he wants to flaunt his riches on his apparel, what he wears, the gold, the jewelry. Wants to. Remember, when you see some people, particularly examples for us at guys in ICT, they wear their shirt.
Okay, let me just bring Godwin in.
All right.
Briefly. Godwin, should there be a distinction for people between when do I save, when do I start investing? Should they be done side by side, or should you, as a learn to save first before you think about investing?
Okay.
How do you draw that line?
Yeah, it depends on where you are, your status as an individual. Do you already have money to invest, or do you already want to just start the process of saving? For most people who are just thinking about, maybe let's talk about the poor.
Yeah.
What they have to do first is to first of all begin with the culture and the habits of saving. Now, when they are able to save a certain amount of money, what they should do is that they should take that money and invest it. Now, what a lot of people do is they save money and save money and save money, and they don't know about investment. The truth is that even if you save a large amount of money, it could be eaten up by inflation. So a lot of people are not aware. So they just keep on saving money and saving money and saving money and piling up money somewhere or hiding up money somewhere. Now, that is not the way to become rich. For you to become rich, for you to move from one level or another in terms of your personal finance, you have to save a certain amount of money, and then at a particular point in time, take that money and put it in a place like in an investment that would make it produce more money for
But
you.
so many people are nervous about investments. We heard about, I don't consider this an investment, MMM, and other Ponzi schemes like that.
I knew you were going to say
Okay, so
that.
now I want you to talk about the kind of investments that people can actually go into, because
Okay.
people are watching and they're wondering, okay, I want to make an investment. I've tried my luck with MMM. I've tried my luck with all these other Ponzi schemes, and they haven't quite worked out for me. So what kind of investment should people be looking at?
Thank you. The first I will always advise people to do is to start your own business. Start your own business. That's what I will always advise you. If you are thinking of whatever kind of investments you want to go into, start your own business.
Well, is that an investment?
Yes, it's an investment. Investing in your own business, what does it mean? Number one, it means that you would have to start buying assets, things that would generate money for you. It means that you would have the opportunity to earn income. So that is an investment. For me, I am an entrepreneur. I'm the CEO of the House of Fudo. And what's that? It's a fast food and restaurant company. So what do? That brings me money. I'm not always there, but I manage that. You understand? So you have to start a business. So
But starting a business is a high-risk investment.
Yes, it's
so not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur to begin with.
Yes.
And number two, investing in your own business actually takes a lot of time. You have to
Yes.
wait at least, I as an entrepreneur know I had to wait about 3-4 years
Okay.
to break even, not
Okay,
even to make profit.
that's not
How
for
many
every.
people have the time and the patience to do that?
Thank you. That's not for every business. There are businesses that you start, and in 3 months you get your break even. There are lots of business like that.
Like which
I
one?
have a cousin of mine who is into fruit juice production, and she told me that the money that comes from that is like ritual money. Yes, it's like ritual money. All she needed to do was to buy the fruit items, the oranges, the pineapple, and all that from the local farmers at a very cheap rate, and sells in miles. And she's making her money. You sell a glass of juice, and you're making 1.5 out of that. Out of a watermelon that you bought for maybe like 300 naira. And that's just like a tiny piece of that juice. So that's why I always tell people, start your own business. You have to look out for what kind of business would work for you. There are capital-intensive businesses that may take a lot of while, like to generate to break even and to generate your income. You understand? But you have to look out for what works for you, and you go in that direction.
Okay. Mr. Paul, I want us to talk about high risk and low risk investments. But before we do that, let's open up the phone lines. We want to hear your thoughts and opinions, your experiences. The number to call is 080-3333-4770. That's 080-3333-4770. So, Mr. Paul, talk to us about high risk and low risk investments.
Okay, so I will answer that, but just to continue from where you stopped, there are 2 types of investment. Broadly speaking, you have passive investment income generating, and you have active investment income generating. So what he has talked about is active. You have to be there, and even if you are not there, you have to be looking at the structure and systems for you to have that income. But perhaps the other kind of investment which you have, all investment has a form of risk, and one that is close to zero is like investing with investing in federal government bond, which could be Sukuk, which could be FG bond, which could be buying some state bond. Hopefully they will pay back in Nigeria these days.
I thought those were 100% guaranteed.
No, FG bond, 100% guarantee. Yeah, state bond used to be 100% guarantee until state themselves are owing.
Wow.
So you need to be sure of what you are buying.
Okay, let's put a pin in it. We have a caller. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Meryl.
Okay, what's your contribution to the conversation? And do you mind turning down your TV set, please?
Okay, hold on, please. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Go on.
Actually, the other man there, I can't recall his name, the first one that talked about the juice stuff.
Okay.
I want to know more about his relation, or is this a friend? I want to know how he went about the juice stuff. I'm in love with juice, and I want to do something of that nature. I always plan what to do with the little resources I have.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to have the contact of that lady so I can put me through.
Okay.
How she started.
No problem. He'll do that. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Hello?
Hello, hi, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm calling from LifeCap. My name is Yusuf Adegbe.
Okay, Yusuf, do you mind turning down your TV set?
Okay, I will do just that.
Thank you. All
I
right.
just want to, about this, hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. Oh, we lost that caller. So, Mr. Paul, before you go on, Godwin, give an answer to the question from the recent caller who said she likes to know more about the juice business. Seems you're convincing people to go into juice business. So if this doesn't work out for you, you won't
I do
continue.
like juice a lot, to be honest, and I do buy.
I know a couple
when
of
I
people
see.
who have gone into the juice business and they are making it big time. They are always smiling to the banks. So if the caller is looking forward to going into that business, I would encourage her to go into that business. The potential is high. But what she needs to do is to ensure that she gets a good location. You get a good location where people are always passing by, because fresh juice business is on the spot, you know, except you have some means of preservation. It's on the spot. People like it fresh. It has to be fresh and chilled. So if she can do that, I can tell her that she'll have a lot of patronage.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have another caller. Your name and where are you calling from?
I'm Tina and I'm calling from Ibadan.
Okay, Tina, what's your contribution to the conversation?
Please, I want to, somebody spoke about investing in treasury bill. Please throw more light on investing on treasury bill and how I can go about it.
Okay, we'll do just that. Thank you. So, Mr. Paul, do you want to take that?
Okay, so Treasury bill is buying security from federal government through the CBN, but you cannot access CBN as individuals. So they are designated, say, financial institutions, particularly the DMBs, deposit money banks, which we know in Nigeria as commercial banks that you can talk to. It's not limited to them. There are other institutions, but it might not be so familiar with. So what is popular, because this is mass media, we don't get people confused. You can just go to any of the commercial banks and tell them you want to buy treasury bills. Now there are limits. When they start telling you that don't worry, we'll do an investment for you and you will earn your interest at the end of the maturity, there are chances that what they are doing for you is FD, fixed deposit, not treasury bill. Treasury bill interest comes up front. That's the good news. So you are even investing and you are getting your interest the day or the following day after your investment, which means you are earning your interest up front, which is beautiful. You can also reinvest your interest. That's the good news. You can reinvest it. So treasury bill has some cap. For instance, a lot of people don't have enough money. Some banks or some institutions have already bought treasury bill, can sell secondary markets to you rather than buying primary market. Most institutions, I will say, if you don't have 1 million naira, you cannot buy treasury bill. So, but you can buy secondary as low as 10,000.
Can you get that from the banks also?
You
like
can get that from the bank.
Into your bank and say you want a secondary.
But you need to convince some bank. I tell you an experience I had. I had a training for prospective retiree in Moshood Abiola University. I think that was 2013 or 2014. And after the training, I told them about treasury bill, people that are retiring, how they can put their retirement benefit and all of that. They said, you are not going anywhere. You are not going back to Abuja. You have to take us to the bank. Exactly. They said they've gone everywhere. Last year you came, you told us you are coming this year, telling us, why have we not done it? We went to the bank. I won't mention the name of the bank. And the bankers, after conversation, said, why do you have to do this? You don't want us to sell our product? Why do you have to do this? And I said, please, I will not bring any other person, but please, you have to do treasury bill. Because you know the reason. Treasury bill comes at a higher rate than what FD is saying. And CBN recently even said that I think there was this month or last month, CBN sold bonds and treasury bill and said banks will not be involved. Because some financial institutions, rather than even lending money,
deposit.
you know, they were putting the money in treasury bills and bonds.
It's interesting you spoke about retirees, and Brian will bring you in. A lot of people are worried when it comes to pensions. Most organizations say they are paying your pensions, and after 30 years, you come out and they give you 500,000 or they give you 2 million. How would you advise people who have the options to either save for pensions or invest? Now,
Brian, I want you to take that question along with this phone call. Your name and where are you calling from?
I'm Daniel calling from Delta State.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Yes, I just want the last caller to the man talking about treasury bills. I tried investing in treasury bills and I found out the interest they were giving to me was too small for 100,000, just 2,900. So I want to know, apart from treasury bills and federal government bonds, is there any other investment that someone can lodge in with a very huge amount of money? Because when I did the calculation, I didn't really like the interest rate was that it was looking so small for me. If I put in 100,000, I'm just getting 2,500. So they look 6 for me. I'd be like, I should invest
Brian, I want you to take that question.
There are a number of things to consider when considering savings and investments, and I think maybe we should go back to the beginning again and make a consideration that is important. Now, every individual, there's no one-size-fits-all panacea for investments or savings. There are different considerations that will be made. So what will work well for one individual might not work well for another individual.
Yes.
Also, then as you make those considerations, there are a number of things to think about. First of all, what's my time horizon? What do I want? How long am I willing to put in my money for? Treasury bills are great, but treasury bills, by definition, bills are short-term. So you're going to make your returns in a short 3 months, 6 months. It means that if I have an investment, if I want to invest for a 5-year period, maybe I want to pay children's school fees or those kind of considerations, I have to understand what investment am I going to put my money in that gives me the possibility of returns. I will also consider how much do I have, what is the size of my investment. Not everybody, the truth about it is...
So give other examples of type of... So I'll give you an instance which I've heard about. Some people invest in real estate, especially in other parts of the world where you get property while it's being built. By the time it's completed, or you can get property because it has of large-scale investment. Some people furnish it and make it a service apartment and resell or put it out on a lease. So give us other examples of how people can invest without treasury bonds and the likes. What other options would you suggest? From low to high, it doesn't matter.
From low risk to high risk, is it the risk we're talking about?
Yeah. Which other examples? Which other options do people have when it comes to savings?
Investing in a business, investing in a startup business. Issues are that for you to make an investment in a business, you have to understand the basic dynamics of that business. Without an understanding of the basic dynamics, I will always advise or warn very stringently that please don't make an investment that you do not understand. First of all, appreciate what that business is doing. Understand what the dynamics of the runnings of that is. It's not just what is potentially coming in. It is also who are the people involved in it. How do they operate? There's not a single activity or investment that will be beneficial to everybody that you say, everybody that goes into this thing makes money. Every time I hear those kind of things, it should bother you. First of all, create your own budget. Let me know what is my income, what's my expense, how much do I have. If I know how much I have coming in, I know what, I liked what he said about you have to consider what do I really need to spend my money on. I can't just, it's not everything that comes in. There are wants, there are needs.
There's only one exception to what you have said. The only investment I personally know that is 100% guaranteed are fixed deposits. When I do fixed deposits with my banks, I make between 9% and 13% depending on my relationship with the bank at the time. And 100% I get my money back. So if people are out there who are looking to invest, you know, for a secure investment, fixed deposits is usually the way. And you can actually withdraw your money before your fixed deposit is due. For example, if you fix it for 3 months and you need your money in an emergency in the first 1 month, you can actually withdraw it, but you just lose the percentage, the interest in which you're meant to make. We have another caller now as we're rounding up the conversation. Your name and where you're calling from, please. Hello? All right. Yes, your name and where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Ogun State.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Mr. Daniel. I'm calling from Ogun State.
Okay, what's your contribution?
I'm hearing about savings and other things. You know, I want to come in the area of our road, light and security. It's making most of us that are doing business not to save. The way the country are moving are not helping us. That is the area. Sometimes you open your shop, local government of this one will come, they are from this local government, they are from this local government, collect 500, collect 200. And if you look at business, it can't say because of the little one they are collecting from you. So those things are making us not to save. So I don't know how people are going to advance us more in that area. That is my own business.
Okay. One more call. Your name and where you're calling from, please. Okay. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hello?
Yes, your name and where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Akute.
Okay, what's your name?
Oluwaseun Samuel, how are you going?
Okay, what's your contribution?
Well, I want to just clarify on some issues. Someone introduced me to business and he said, I will say 100%
of my investment in a very short time. And I was very curious about that. But I wave it off. That's just it. Is it possible to invest and see 100% of the money you invest in a business?
Okay, so did
You
we
get
get
me
that
right?
question?
Yeah.
All right, yes, I got you. Thank you. All right, so I'll give you guys a chance. Two questions about the impossibility of saving in a culture where we lack power, we lack basic infrastructures. And the second question was, is it possible to see 100% return on investment? So Brian answered that, then we just go across the couch before we
Okay.
wrap it up.
Before let's also look at something. You talked about fixed deposits.
Yes.
Fixed deposits at 9% to 13%.
Yes.
And let's also appreciate that that kind of saving is low risk and by inherently low risk, low return. Now, if I compare 9% return with the level of inflation, then it might be that over a period, I'm actually losing value rather than gaining value. That's a possibility. Now, there are things like mutual funds that could be advertised by banks because mutual funds will give you a higher return and give you fairly stable risk. And now it's a consideration to be made that what's the level of my risk what's the level of risk I'm willing to accept, because 100% return is possible, but 100% return means significant risk compared to a 10%, 15% return. So is it possible for you to make an investment and get 100% return? Absolutely. Maybe within 6 months, within a year. There's a possibility that can happen. There's also a possibility that you can lose all your money. So there has to be a consideration. What is important, like I talked about training the first time, is to appreciate a number of things. There's something called an IPS, an investment policy statement, where you basically budget, basically structure a number of considerations. There's not and that's the problem I usually have. Someone's trying to get something that will work. For you to get something that will work, there has to be an education, there has to be an understanding of a number of aspects. If I have $1 million, for example, or let's 100,000, then there's a consideration of what is the one that I don't want to lose or I can't afford to lose within this money. So if I now structure my funds into different activities, then I'm saying this one is the one that is high risk. This one, if it goes and it gets 100%, very great, it increases my chances. If it goes and it doesn't come back, because there has to be that consideration of it not coming. It's not a God forbid thing. It's a practical thing that, and so I'll have to make those structure. It's something that you can't discuss in 1 hour and then give an answer that will fit all. You have to consider a lot of things. There will be interesting things that would make everybody excited. However, are those things possible? Is it possible for those things to really generate what you want to get ultimately without a proper plan? The answer is absolutely not. So there has to be a plan. There has to be an appreciation of what is my stage of life. Like we were talking about retirees earlier on. A retiree might have a shorter term period than someone that is maybe has started working and worked for 4 years, maybe 28 years, and you have the ability to make mistakes. I can lose this money, and in 5 years down the line, I would have forgotten about the loss and still go on to be able to survive over that time. And those kind of considerations will have to be made. Stage of life, the level of income, someone saying remove 10% and then save or save 10%, save 15%. Those things, you have to consider the kind of individual. You have to consider a number of things. And ultimately, savings comes with discipline. You have to be disciplined.
And there's a saying that goes, if you can't save when you're making 10,000 naira, you
You
won't be able to save if you're making 10 million naira. Godwin, your final words.
So what I would just say to everyone out there that is trying to save is, even as much as you're trying to save and invest, you need to monitor your investments. You need to monitor your investments. A lot of people just carry their money and put into a company, and they don't check how the company is doing. They don't check how the company is faring. So you need to periodically go and look at how far this company, how are they doing, how are they coming up. You need to look at their annual reports, their quarterly reports. You need to go through those things. And if you are just trying to save with maybe community organizations like ACISO and all that, you also have to monitor the people who are in charge of these things, because there are a lot of people that have come and say we are doing contribution, and then they come and they carry people's money and cut away with it. So you need to monitor wherever you are putting in your money to, if you want to ensure that you have a good plan for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so very much. If you want to get 100% return on investment, you should also be ready in a short while, that you should be ready to lose everything in a short while. The longer your investment gives you the return, the lower the risk, ceteris paribus, other things being equal. So those who wants to make money overnight, aka MMM, and other names, they are the ones that will get their finger burned. So, but if you want look at what is it that the maximum financial instrument is giving you, say sukuk bond or bond generally, it will not be as high to the point that government will even be able to pay. You are giving government, you are lending to government, and government is giving you that low risk. Imagine you are giving to 1 million naira share holding company and promising you in 3 months will give you 300%. You know that even there is greed in your soul that is driving you in a way. So you have that. Then you talk about environmental issues, no power, none of that. Listen, we don't live in the air. We also live in Nigeria. I am not saying that government has gotten it perfectly. Government could be part of the problem to be solved, but people are still thriving in this harsh economy. So it depends on what you see. If you see impossibilities, then things will be relatively impossible for you. But if you be tenacious, and the more you succeed in Nigeria, I can tell you, if you go outside Nigeria, it will be relatively easier for you. Talking about somebody who talked about investment, huge amount of money, because I'm not sure his question has been really answered. There are different types of investment. All I've spoken about is financial. You have also spoken about bank, but inflation, you are really not making money if you 9 to 13%. Inflation was 18% at some time, which means you are losing up to 6% when you are getting maximum return on that investment. Inflation is that evil you cannot see. The 100 naira you have today at 18% means you only have 82 naira by next year, in a year's time. So you're not making money. But when you invest in real estate, there are lots coming now in Abuja and Lagos, people being skyscraper in hotels and saying invest on proportion. That's what we see in Dubai when we travel. And they say invest a part. You don't need to have to own the hotel. But you are sure you are having return on investment. It's not going to come in a year. Like T-bills come in 3 months, 9 months. It's not going to come in 2 years, like bond come in 2 years. But when it comes, the truth is that you will laugh at last.
But that's if it comes.
When it comes, it's not if. Because if we talk about real estate investment, of course, the return should be higher, but the risk is higher.
Exactly.
But this is where you now sit on it. You are putting all your egg in one basket. You are not going home. You are sitting with the basket because your life depends on what happened to the basket. If it drops, you lose all the egg.
Right, government has said they monitor
Yes,
it.
but we've heard of situations where people have put in an investment in community plans. So they'll show you the plan that they want to build, but it's never completed.
Yes.
Exactly. So
Our
there's
government
also
demolishes
exactly. So
the building.
there's also a risk that comes with
Huge
that.
risk with high investment. So
That's
the
why I'm
man
advising
has-
that banks are 100%. That is
Yes.
what you can hold me to that.
about
But hold everybody else to the juice business, the real estate, and all of that.
treasury
Thank you so much, Mr. Paul, Mr. Godwin, and Mr. Brian for coming on today's program. We'll take a short break right now, but before we do that, we have to give a special shout out to our intern Tuzi, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, one of our biggest fans, Auntie Soya and say happy belated birthday. And to everyone out there who's celebrating a birthday, that is a fan of the weekend show. Happy birthday. We celebrate you. We wish you good health, sound mind, and many more years ahead. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, more on the weekend show. Don't go anywhere.